Hi, I'm Summer. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you are new, welcome. If you didn't know, this channel, I like to do a little bit of true crime, and then hopefully soon I will be doing a little bit of mystery. Today, I do want to warn you, this is a rough one, so bear with me, but every time I see this story, I have to put it out there and I have to talk about it. It is a rough one, so warning. Early June of 2023, the West Boulevard neighborhood could hear a baby crying. The people that lived in this neighborhood on their Ring doorbell could hear a baby crying non-stop. The baby was 16-month-old Jailyn Candelario. She was said to be a very happy, a very smart baby. Talking to neighbors, they said it was normal for Jailyn, a 16-month-old, to be left alone by the mother. Even though they had told her that is not right to do, she did it anyways. Nobody could have predicted that the next time being left alone would be for 11 days. And this time, Jailyn would not have survived. February 22nd, 2024, Crystal Candelario pleaded guilty to 1 count of aggravated murder, 1 count of child endangerment. Once the judge heard what this woman did, he sentenced her to life in prison. This to be the ultimate betrayal. And that came from the judge himself. June 6th, 2023, Crystal Candelario left her daughter Jailyn alone unattended at her home in Cleveland, Ohio. She then flew 100 miles away to Puerto Rico, where she took pictures of her vacationing, going on the beach with friends, and with a man that she is said to be romantically with. Crystal did not come home until June 16th, and when she did, she then found her daughter Jailyn unresponsive in the pack and play, with her having fecal matter and urine all over her. Crystal calls 911 and first responders pronounced Jailyn deceased at the scene.
Heard screaming for help.
Please, I need help. Okay, I can't help you if I don't know where you're at, so tell me the address so we can help you. 3129 West 97. Okay, is there a single or an apartment? Please. What's your name? Crystal. What's your last name, Crystal? Crystal Candelario, please help me. And what's your number? Disconnected.
When police questioned Crystal, she said she was home the whole time. But the way Jailyn's body was did not match Crystal's story. Detectives investigated starting with the neighbors' Ring doorbells, recording 648 hours worth of video, watching when Crystal left and came back to take care of her baby. Crystal and Jailyn lived with Crystal's parents, who had left for vacation, and they left the country June 1st. So they were not here for this. And Crystal's oldest daughter, yes, she has 2 children, was with her parents on vacation. And her youngest daughter was left with Crystal to watch. June 4th, she also left, starting with a late breakfast at Denny's, and at some point going to Michigan. And it was to visit a boyfriend, another boyfriend. Yes, another boyfriend. Coming back to the 6th, coming back home, June of the 6th, after that trip, And remember, this trip is before Puerto Rico. This is Michigan. This is a different trip because Puerto Rico was June 6th. That's when she left there. She wasn't done having fun, obviously. Had another boyfriend to go party with. The cameras showed her leaving June 6th with suitcases and leaving her baby Jailyn behind. 16-month-old Jailyn. Investigators actually seen tickets for 2 days in Michigan and 11 days in Puerto Rico. Posts and pictures show her having a great time while she is in Puerto Rico. Her taking pictures on the beach, her taking pictures with friends, her boyfriend, while Jailyn is at home by herself alone in a pack and play. A side note, with one of the pictures that she did take, it shows her lifting her middle finger, kind of like flipping off the camera. What do you guys think that means? Is that, to me, that means I don't really care who sees me. It kind of means, screw you. Is she doing that for specific people? Is she doing that for, say, maybe her parents that went on vacation without her? Is she mad because her parents didn't bring her and her youngest daughter? So she decided to go on vacation without her youngest daughter. After Puerto Rico, she didn't go straight back to Cleveland. Oh no, she decided she wanted to go to Detroit June 12th through the 15th. And June 16th, she shows up, pulling back up into the driveway. This is the Ring doorbells that shows her. And after 10 minutes, after she brought her suitcases in, after 10 minutes, she calls 911. And she sounds pretty upset, right? Yeah. Well, investigators talking to Crystal after all of that, it shows a different side of her, how she's talking to her lying about being home with.
She was with no food, just with a meal, because she was refusing. Maybe it's because she didn't want me 2 days, before. Yeah. So that's why. I was scary because I say, oh my God, let me go to the hospital because she doesn't eat anything. And she was lose tiny, her weight. Yeah. I lose, her weight. But right now, in this morning when I wake up, she was asleep. She sleep every day 12 hours. Okay. She sleep like at 9 p.m. through 9 or 10 a.m. Okay. 12 hours. So, in this morning I was sleeping too. I never wake up. She was.
What happened? What was going on last night?
Last night she was crying a lot, and I see one moment when I was take a shower, and she was screaming like I don't know, probably she get a pain. Okay. Maybe.
About what time was that last night?
Maybe at 7 or 8 p.m.
Okay.
So she was screaming like, probably for pain or something like that. In this morning when I wake up, I took her in the morning for, Jailyn, wake up, and she wake up, and when I see her, I see she looks like a really, really dry, like a, ¿cómo se dice cuando una persona se chupa, o sea,
kind of like,
yeah.
Like her sides was sunken in?
So, yeah. Okay.
Crystal seems pretty calm in that video. A lot different from the video of her freaking out. She tried telling investigators Jailyn was not taking food and was throwing up throughout the week, even though Crystal was not home throughout the week. So not only did Crystal leave her baby alone, without food, without water, with only a bottle or two of milk and a pack and play But Crystal's also lying, saying that she was home the whole time, trying to say that Jailyn was just sick. She wouldn't take any food, that this is on her. This isn't on Crystal, this is on Jailyn, the 16-month-old. So she's lying. She's lying to investigators about this. And also, because of this whole situation going on, she was so upset that she had to leave again, and she went to Michigan to see her boyfriend. And some other people have said that, and I think maybe this actually came from her boyfriend himself, that she said that she was upset, but she was eating like she was just fine. And her boyfriend himself, he couldn't eat because he was so disgusted about the whole situation. But she could eat. She was fine. Weird. Weird. When first responders did come in and they found Jailyn, she had a brand new outfit on, clean, but she had fecal matter caked on the bottom of her feet and caked all over her fingers and around and inside of her mouth. This came from first responders.
We later learned that sunken eyes is a result of severe dehydration. To the naked eye, it appears she had dirt in her mouth and fingernails. It wasn't until the next day that detectives learned that the dirt in fact was feces. Detectives also began to gain clarity as to what really happened to Jailyn. Candelario's fabricated story, which she initially told detectives, began.
Jailyn was taken to a medical facility where there was an actual autopsy done to show what was done. Here's the doctor.
Cases I've had in my career thus far. So today I speak on behalf of her and her findings with the course of my examination. We received Jailyn at the medical examiner's office from the scene of her residence, at which time she was clothed in non-soiled clothing, indicating her body had likely been dressed prior to first responders' arrival, as they had mentioned before. So at autopsy, I examined the body of a very emaciated female toddler. At this point, she weighed 13 pounds. Upon review of medical records, this indicated approximately a 7-pound weight loss since her previous doctor's visit less than 2 months prior to that. The eyes were sunken, and she had temporal wasting in her face. In addition to that, the skin showed markedly decreased turgor, meaning when I pinch the skin, it remains in that tented position, indicating severe dehydration. In addition, there was abundant fecal material present caked on the fingers, the fingernails, the hands, the feet, as well as the soles of the feet. The same material was found on her lips, which were very dry and flaking, as well as in her oral cavity, caked to her teeth. She did have some diaper rash apparent, as well as fecal material adherent to those areas. Of note, the body was essentially free of significant injury, with the exception of dried excoriations or scratches to the face region predominantly, and whether or not these were inflicted to herself in a conscious or semi-conscious state while she was dying, I'm unable to determine that. Very early decompositional changes were present. This included faint discoloration or green discoloration of the abdomen. These are typically changes that we see within 2 to 3 days following death. No additional changes to suggest that she passed away prior to this were found externally or internally. Upon internal examination, I continued to find evidence consistent with starvation and dehydration. These included pale discoloration of the musculature, which was minimal. There was a decrease in intra-abdominal fat to the point of transparency as her body tried to feed upon itself for nutrients. Her stomach contents consisted of less than 2 milliliters of brown mucoid material. This is about equivalent to the distal part of my thumb, a very small amount. The rest of her bowel just contained patchy fecal material, but very minimal throughout. Her organs, including her liver, kidneys, and thymic gland, showed evidence of stress, specifically microscopically on exam. I found no additional evidence of significant natural disease going on or congenital abnormalities. Following my exam, I submitted body fluids for additional toxicology and chemistry testing, which further confirmed my gross findings that she had passed in a state of severe dehydration. Her kidneys had failed, and she was in a state of ketoacidosis, which leads to coma and eventually death. As such, I determined the cause of death to be just that, starvation and severe dehydration due to pediatric neglect. To come to the exact wording of the cause of death was based on my findings, but also the medical definitions, which I'd like to reiterate here. Dehydration, and specifically starvation, is a lengthy and continuous deprivation of food as to cause suffering or death. Pediatric neglect is the failure of a caregiver to meet adequately a child's basic needs, including physical safety, protection, food, clothing, shelter, education, medical or dental care, and supervision. In other words, neglect for Jailyn's basic needs from a caregiver resulted in her death. As such, I ruled this manner to be homicide. Most homicide deaths involve acts of violence inflicted from one person onto another, but this case involves a failure to act appropriately to support another who is dependent on them, falling into a homicidal manner. In the absence of more advanced decompositional changes, I believe that the pain and suffering she endured lasted not only hours, not days, but possibly even a week. This is a pain that comes from an extreme thirst and hunger. It also stems from an inherent terror of isolation or the lack of someone present to provide that. My knowledge on the depth of this suffering may not be as extensive as a medical or a mental health professional, but as a physician with psychiatric and pediatric training, I feel comfortable stating that the deprivation of food coupled with physical isolation and caregiver abandonment weighing. We know that babies and children cry when they're hungry because it's unsettling and it's uncomfortable. That's almost immediately after birth. We also know that children as early as age 4 to 5 months experience separation anxiety, with the most extreme anxiety around 9 to 18 months. Jailyn was 16 months old. This feeling of abandonment for days on end, coupled with the pain of starvation and extreme thirst, is a type of suffering I don't think any of us could ever fully fathom. So, as a forensic pathologist, it is said that we are the voice of the dead and given the responsibility to speak for those who can't. So this morning, I'm honored to maintain that mission.
So, unfortunately, she starved to death, which is supposed to be a very painful process. When the body faces starvation, it starts to feed on itself. The immune system weakens, and towards the end of the starvation, it starts to eat your muscle, and it starts to eat your organs. So, like your heart. I really do have so much respect for the investigators and the detectives that were involved in this, because they acted like Jailyn's family. And that's what Jailyn needed. She needed somebody to put her story out there and to get a hold of who is responsible for this.
And I can honestly say, Your Honor, in my 17-year career as a Cleveland police officer, this by far is the most horrific case I've ever had to investigate. Now I've been a detective for 10 years. First and foremost, I want to thank the entire homicide unit, the entire Cleveland Police Department prosecutor's office. As you see, we're here, we're Jailyn's voice. Fortunately, there's no family on our side, but we're her family. I wrote a short poem, just something in commemoration of Jailyn's life. J is for the justice that'll be received today. A is for the angel wings she earned on that joyful day. I is for the incremental repetition, build-up of suspense for an innocent bystander's death that clearly makes no sense. L is for the lack of love while alone for 11 days. Y is for a young life that was taken away. N is for new eternal life Jailyn gained on that day. No child should ever have to die this way. Jailyn's life truly mattered. Unfortunately, she died trying to survive off of her own urine and fecal matter.
So the day that Crystal was actually arrested finally, her parents were out of the country. They were still on vacation and they weren't talking yet. Instead, Crystal's aunt spoke for them.
So,
Appreciate your honesty.
so with trying to avoid issues in the family, problems with, if I get involved in anything, she will get a little upset.
Okay.
And my sister says, just look at people, back off, She's my niece and I love her to
Of
death.
course, yeah.
And I want the best for her. But she doesn't allow me to help her or give her advice, so I just step back.
Okay.
So those issues, everybody has in their family.
Yeah, of
and then,
course, yeah.
And then I just look for the best for her, but she doesn't allow me to.
Gotcha.
So since her parents left, she had built that.
So the aunt said that Crystal's mom usually watched Jailyn, but that she didn't know who was watching her at the time. And she said that they were not on good terms, so she didn't expect to be asked for anything, but that she would have helped her if she would have asked. She would have helped in a heartbeat, is what she said. Crystal's lawyer even had his opinion.
Narcissistic, selfish, abhorrent, absolutely worst parenting imaginable.
He also explains, her lawyer explains how hard of a time she had with her ex-husband and how mentally exhausting it had been for her and what it put her through. He says that she had a lot of underlying stress for mentally and for anxiety, and as well as migraines, and she had to take medication because
Of affects her, but she's saying that she's out and she needs more and she's coming back with the same problems. So they had her evaluated again, and they were saying that her anxiety and her stress was the trigger for these physical manifestations to what was happening to her, for the loss of sensation in the side of her body, the numbness. And they prescribed her more Depakote, more Effexor, and also Atarax to help her sleep because she wasn't sleeping. And this is in March of 2023. Take the medications as prescribed. And then medications ran out. She wasn't feeling any better. They weren't working. She stopped. Not supposed to do that with these drugs, Your Honor. These are very serious mental health drugs. And you need to be tapered off of these medications or there could be some side effects. Not only the side effects, but the actual underlying conditions that she may have had or been suffering from are also going unmedicated at this time. When the prosecution showed pictures of her on her trip, pictures can be deceiving. Personally, for having myself suffer from depression and anxiety, you can't tell what a person's going through from a picture, what they're dealing with on the inside. Nobody knew what she was suffering from. Her doctors even thought it was migraines and possible strokes. Again, there's no justification for her action when she was out there, what she was doing. She could have called somebody, she could have done this, yes, but when you're in that state, when you're off medication, mismanaging your thoughts, you're not thinking clearly, her body she had to get out, and if she was having fun, if she was okay in her mind, Jailyn was.
no offense to her lawyer, but he was just doing his job, honestly, and I think he was doing a good job. There is no excuse for leaving your 16-month-old daughter behind while you go on vacation. And even if she does have mental illness, and it is a real thing, even if she does have this mental illness, that is not an excuse. And she was fully capable of going on vacation. How was she not capable of calling someone to take care of her child? And she had this 11 days to think about what she was doing, to have fun, and to think about her child as well. And think, I have neighbors around, let me give them a call and let them take care of Jailyn since she doesn't want to take care of her. Take responsibility. That is how I feel. I can't imagine having a child, much less leaving them alone with her, that it was pathetic to do what she did. She had so many options, so many. And this being my opinion, I don't think this is a mental thing. I think she was fully capable of doing it. Crystal herself says that she thinks God and Jailyn have forgiven her for this. But have they really? Have they? So, my thoughts on this, my opinions. I am outraged that somebody could leave their child. I don't understand it. I would never understand that. I have fur babies. I have animals. And my first thought is, even if I leave for just an afternoon and I come back the next day, the next morning, my dogs, I think, they're going to have to go potty. They're going to have to pee. They need to go outside to go to the bathroom. They need to have their dinner. They need to have their water. My cats, they need to be fed. They're very picky. Now a child, I can only imagine. They need more than that. You have to make sure they're not eating things that they're not supposed to eat. You need to make sure they have food, they have water. You need to make sure you're there for them. I'm outraged. I'm completely outraged. And I can't believe it. And she's not forgiven. There's no way she's forgiven. Jailyn is no longer with us. There's no way she's forgiven. What do you guys think about this? Do you feel the same way? Do you feel different? I mean, honestly, like, why? If you guys are still here watching this, I'm glad you bared with it with me. I really had to go over this video. It's haunting. Please be careful out there. Be safe. And don't talk to strangers.